Total War Rome 3 needs to be a thing. In other words, Rome 2 needs a sequel. Said less plainly, Rome Total War needs to be the first game in a trilogy of Roman-era Total War games, with Rome Remastered being nothing more than a warm-up to an upcoming Rome 3. Rome times 3, if you'd like. There, I said it. Rome, Rome, Rome! Hey there friends, my name is Andy, and today I'm going to tell you why it's time for a Total War Rome 3. I want you to close your eyes and imagine something. Actually, don't close your eyes, that's a weird ask and you need them to watch this video. Okay, second try. Think about this. The year is 2004. Yeah, 2004. Jeez, it's 2004? Fuck, okay, I guess it's 2004. But more importantly, it's the year the first Roman-era Total War game ever releases. The game prior, Medieval Total War, literally looked like this. So when I tell you that Rome Total War, looking like this, looked awesome, I'm not exaggerating one Roman paved roads. Rome Total War was beautiful in every way. For me, Rome was the game that opened my mind to what a strategy game could be. Battlefields with thousands of units at the same time, massive siege battles, a grand campaign map not bound by story restrictions. Well, by Jupiter's stone if I didn't inject this shit straight into my prepubescent teen veins. But as the years went by, so did the Total War games. We got another medieval game, a gunpowder game, another gunpowder game, a samurai game, and a samurai gunpowder game. And don't get me wrong, most of them were great. Really great. Other than Medieval 2 though, many of them just didn't quite live up. But finally, 2013 came around, and there it was. Total War Rome 2. The hype was real. And then the day of release came. Believe me when I say I was fully prepared to salt the living earth out of Carthage. But, well, let's just say Rome 2 was unfinished at best and an absolutely broken mess at worst. If we forget about all of the bugs, Rome 2 appeared epic and grand though. It had a beautiful campaign map and awesome battle visuals. But the problems laid underneath the hood. You see, Rome 2 lacked so much. At launch, there was no family tree, no politics, and no banditry mechanic, but these points would be added in over the course of around 4 years. Perhaps worse, there was and still is no real official population mechanic, but only a simple abstract growth meter. On top of that, the game was hella laggy. There's still no governor system, no horde system, and no fertility system. The reason why I'm mentioning these last three aspects is because another Roman-era game came out 2 years after Rome 2, Total War Attila, which added these mechanics in to great effect. Why Rome 2 got updates even after Attila, but failed to receive these mechanics, doesn't make sense to me at all, especially when Rome 2, despite everything, is Creative Assembly's best-selling historical title ever. Rome 2 then lacked a whole lot, and despite about 5 years of expansions and updates, Rome 2 without mods never really felt that deep to me. Games before either innovated or felt deep, like Rome or Medieval 2 with population mechanics, road building, use of diplomats for agents, better combat systems, the fact that you actually needed siege weapons to besiege walled cities, and everything else mentioned prior to this. And games after did mostly everything better than Rome 2, be it Attila with its much deeper mechanics, Three Kingdoms with its updated diplomacy system, or a Total War Saga Troy which has nailed both graphics, performance, diplomacy, and the vibe of ancient Greece. What's more, Total War Rome Remastered is releasing soon, updating old Rome Total War with a fresh coat of paint, and a game which actually can be modded like crazy to show completely new campaign maps. Rome 2 then sits in an awkward position in 2021. It's almost 8 years since the game released, which, and this might sound insane, is almost as long as the time between the first and the second Rome. This fact alone is reason enough to expand the series with another title. By the end of this year, we would have had 3 Warhammer games in the past 6 years, and assuming Rome 3 wouldn't launch at least before 2022, why can't we have 3 Rome games in 18? More importantly, I think the time is right because I believe the Creative Assembly has turned a corner with Total War. With every new game since Rome 2, CA has innovated either with new mechanics or new ideas. Not having to mention the Warhammer series here, Total War Attila felt to me like the last truly great historical Total War title, but you know, damned be the performance issues of that game. But both Three Kingdoms and Total War Troy has nailed diplomacy and faction flavor, giving each faction unique mission systems and mechanics specific to those nations. Both Total War Attila and Troy even brings the most beautiful UI systems in the series' history in my opinion, either being minimalistic and easy to read in Attila, or fantastically crafted and atmospheric in Troy. It also seems like CA has finally landed on a great build for their engine. Where I normally play at around 40 to 80 FPS on the Rome 2 campaign map, I play at more than 100 FPS on the campaign map in Troy, and it looks absolutely fantastic to boot. But other than performance improvements, what could a Total War Rome 3 offer in terms of new mechanics? Well, I think CA could take inspiration from Imperator Rome here, a Paradox Grand Strategy title. Rome 2 had very little depth in terms of city development. I wish a potential Rome 3 would let us build roads again, but not through city construction. By giving more agency to armies, we could have them lay down the roads as they did historically. In this way, factions would see their empires integrate more and more over the course of a campaign, and it would give the player more agency too, as it included them in the road decision-making process rather than being fully automated like in Rome 2. Furthermore, we should be able to build walls in whatever city we want. Again, agency needs to be put back into the hands of the player. CA should do away with the restrictive city building system they've used since Empire Total War and allow us to build almost whatever we want, wherever we want, as long as the terrain and environment allows for it. Perhaps they could also rework the cost system to be adapted based on how near or close the city is from the capital, which would make it more expensive for players to found or build great cities in the far corners of the empire where resources are scarce. Let us raise proper permanent fortifications outside of cities like we could before, which allowed us to create choke points at strategic locations and populate the map with these minor but important locations. You could even expand on this system, having the fort system work like horde nations do in Attila. With every fort, you could erect essentially a minor fort town as you can when temporarily settling your horde. Here, you could build barracks, a trader, and other minor buildings which would impact your troop replenishment, siege holdout time, and the town would even have its own economic impact on nearby cities, which would bring goods to the fort town. You could even make its financial impact fully reliant on whether an army was stationed there or not, as a stationary army would buy and sell at the local market. Speaking of cities, we need a proper population system and supply system with real, relatable numbers, not a whole city represented by an abstract number representing growth per turn. If we must have a food mechanic, then at least have it impact this population system, and add in Attila's fertility mechanic, which accurately makes regions like Egypt proper breadbaskets for history's greatest empires. This makes owning strategic locations even more vital, as owning farms in the Sahara will be useless, while doing so in Egypt, parts of Europe or Mesopotamia will be vital for any empire. Rome 3 would need to implement a proper governor system like in Total War Attila, but honestly, fully do away with an upper limit for how many governors can work at the same time, which just doesn't make any sense. Every province or region should have its own governor, who is more or less loyal to the state depending on the relation cultivated with this governor. We need armies with personalities and traditions. Rome 2 attempted this system, but in my opinion, it didn't really work as intended. I never felt that close to my armies as I never heard from them. This is done so much better in Imperator Rome, where armies will attain traditions based on their actual actions, not just something you give them because they have a level up ability. Furthermore, units in armies should risk becoming loyal to their generals, and unique events relating to each army should pop up depending on where they are or the problems they're facing. This could pose great threats to the state's stability if a general and an army turn mutinous and decide to take matters into their own hands. Attila scratched the surface of this with an army loyalty system, which is great, but which could be expanded upon greatly. An overhaul of the diplomacy system would also be great, with the new system found in 3K and Troy, which is much more easy to understand for both the player and the AI, as it makes diplomacy a matter of basic math. However, I think the automatic diplomacy system has outrun its course. As this would be the ancient era, I really think we should either return to the system of dispatching diplomats to other empires, or have the ability to establish some version of temporary or permanent embassies. This could also make diplomacy its own focal point for a nation attempting to become a diplomatic great power by closing ties with as many states as possible. With a diplomatic range mechanic, this would make actually being situated in a populous region important, as it could give access to vital trade resources and potential allies. We desperately need a revised trade system too, where trade licenses or agreements are issued to factions of your choosing, but where you decide not only which goods are allowed to be traded away, but the import and export tariffs of your nation, and where the value of the trade agreements shift dynamically with the acquisition of new resources or industrial goods. These are just some of the campaign ideas that could be implemented for massive effect, but I believe a triumvirate effort in military, diplomacy, and trade aspects would go a long way in reforming and vastly improving the concept of the Total War campaign. And I think CA is ready to take these steps. They have proven it with the diversity and scope of the Warhammer games and the diplomacy and focus on trade goods in 3K and Total War Troy. And then there was the battle map. Well, honestly, I think the battle maps are what Total War does best, like by far. There's a reason why people play Total War games after all. Why play this inferior campaign series if it weren't for, well, scenes like this? But here too, things can be improved. Locations on the battle maps should as closely as possible resemble the geographical location on the campaign map, as was the case in Rome Total War. More importantly, I think the series needs to totally revamp its city maps. There's always a set number of cities in these games, so as many as possible should look unique with its own architecture and pathways. Furthermore, few cities stand smack in the middle of a completely flat field, so it would be awesome if the region around the city looked more natural. For defensive positions, it should be possible to mount siege weapons on the walls like in Attila, but in a more granular way. But most importantly is the way units face off with each other. The collision system in Rome 2 was fairly awful, especially when it came to cavalry, and the way horses clashed was just, yeah, completely terrible. That's why I think it would be great if some mechanic was added to horse changes where, in a situation where cavalry smashed into each other, some horses and riders would immediately fall over the initial impact, which in real life would almost always kill many within seconds. In short, I want cavalry charges to be deadly, not just pushing people over and having them get back up again. I also think it would be awesome if good archers would kill on impact depending on the armor and shield of the enemy unit, but perhaps be more expensive to recruit and take longer to train. In addition, I hope for the return of visible armor improvements on the battlefield, which was a feature in Medieval 2 where, if you upgraded your units on the campaign map, they would actually look more heavily armored on the battle map. And of course, we can always talk about AI and pathfinding issues, but those are always present challenges. Whether Creative Assembly decides to implement any of this or not, I firmly believe it is time for a Total War Rome 3, a title which could bring the glory back to the Rome series. And yes, I too crave a Medieval 3 or an Empire 2, but since Rome 2 was so botched, and because Antiquity is so uniquely awesome, I feel like CA needs to revisit this period at some point in the not too distant future. But what do you think? Do you want a Total War Rome 3? Is it too soon? Or are other titles more deserving of top priority? If you enjoyed the video, then please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!